Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? Now, I don't know why, but everyone on YouTube that talks about tire rotations only seems to talk about patterns and forgets one super important step that could double or triple the life of your tires. So that's what we're going to go over today. All right, so before we get to tire rotations and more relatively complex stuff, let's cover a few basics. So before you start rotating your tires, it's very important to check and make sure all your steering and suspension components are in good order. You want to check and make sure you got no play in your outer and inner tie rods, your lower and upper ball joints if so equipped, your shocks or struts, all your bushings and stuff, everything regarding your suspension and steering components needs to be in good order. Because if you have a bad component that's going to wear out a tire, there's actually an argument to be made that you don't want to rotate your tires, because instead of having one badly or semi-badly damaged tire, if you start rotating your tires with a bad component, you're going to end up with having 4 damaged tires. Also goes without saying, it's very important to make sure your alignment is good as well. All right, next you want to check and see whether your tires are directional or non-directional. Now, most cars will have non-directional tires, but as some of you can tell already, this tire is a directional tire because the way these vanes are for water drainage. But also you can check on the surface of your tire or the sides of your tire, and usually you'll see some writing or an arrow indicating the direction of rotation for that tire. So that arrow is pointing that way. That means this tire, when mounted on the wheel, can only be placed on this side to go forward. So if that's the case and you need to rotate your tires, you can only rotate the front one with the rear one on the same side, since they're both already mounted on the wheel to go this way, and same for that side. You can only rotate that one with that one. The only way you can swap this around is to dismount these tires from these wheels, and we'll cover that later. All right, next you want to check and make sure you don't have different size tires in the rear compared to the front ones. Now let's say these rear tires were bigger than the front ones. You obviously cannot move these bigger ones to the front and the smaller tires to the back, because the way the manufacturer designed this, if you do this, you're going to have severe drivability issues. And pretty much the only way you can rotate these guys is this one to here, this one to here, and same for the front. And you want to check the size of your tire on the sidewalls of your tire and not what the manufacturer states, because someone in the past might have put a different size tire somewhere, and you want to find that out before you start rotating tires around. All right, next let's talk about patterns. And we'll start with the front wheel drive vehicle. On these cars, looking from the top down, this being the front of the vehicle, the most common pattern is to move the driven or the wheels and tires that are up under torque up front straight to the rear, and then crisscross the rear ones to the front. All right, next let's skip ahead a little bit and talk about all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles. Again, looking from the top down, this being the front of the car, I've seen people recommend this pattern, which is to simply rotate this one across to the rear, this one also across to the rear, and then next rotation, you do the same thing. Now, if you do this all the time, you're only using these 2 locations for these 2 tires and these 2 locations for these 2 tires, and these are not moving around to the other locations like the front wheel drive pattern and the rear wheel drive pattern that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So in my opinion, you should not use this pattern, and you need to forget about this pattern and use this pattern, which is commonly recommended for rear wheel drive vehicles. Now this pattern, opposite of the front wheel drive pattern, is you move the rear wheels that are under torque straight to the front and crisscross the front ones to the back. All right, now as far as how often you want to rotate your tires, it's going to vary greatly. In my opinion, anything from 5 to 7,000 miles, it's good. We're going to stick to 5,000 miles for the sake of argument, and we're going to do a live demonstration of rotating these tires for rotations. And we're going to mark one of these and keep track of them by this piece of tape, and we're going to put this on the outside edge of this tire, hint, and then at the end we'll talk about why this is not optimal and it's missing one important step. All right, so on our rear wheel drive vehicles, the 2 driven ones come straight to the front ones crisscross back. That's one rotation. Our tire is back here. Notice this tape is still on the outer edge. So there's our tire now with the tape on it again. All right, now our tire is back here. Again, tape on the outside edge. All right, so after 4 rotations, we're back to where we started. We hit every single possible spot. We went there, 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 here. Now, is that good? No, not really. This will cut the life of your tire in half, because as you notice, in every location, the outside of this tire was on the outside. Didn't matter, we went to the back, the rear, crisscross, whatever. that outer edge stayed on the outside. So yeah, doing them this way obviously is not optimal, especially if you have a front-wheel drive vehicle, because on a front-wheel drive vehicle, not only the torque that's coming out of your transmission goes to these outside tires and wheels, but also you do your turning and steering with your front wheels, obviously, which will put more wear on these tires. And if you do them this way, where that outside edge is always on the outside, no matter where you rotate this tire to, you're gonna wear out these tires prematurely. Now, the way to remedy this is to dismount these tires and flip them around every other rotation. I'm gonna show you in a little bit how doing that changes everything, but I also wanna mention that you can sort of do this still as a DIYer. I assume you already have jacks and jack stands. All you have to do is to get the car off the ground, grab the four wheels, make sure you mark the tires, not the wheels, mark the tires where they go. And yeah, simply take them to a tire shop. You can take them to a used tire shop maybe, if you have one close by, and they'll swap out the tires. They rotate the tires on the wheels for you for, a couple of bucks. Definitely way less than what it would cost to replace the tires. All right, I'm actually gonna show it to you on this piece of paper, and this graph should help make more sense of it. So we're gonna use this pattern for a rear-wheel drive vehicle. We're gonna assume we have new tires at 0 miles, and we're gonna mark the right front tire on the outside edge. So after our first rotation, doing this rotation, we need to move this to the rear. That's all we do. We move this to the rear, which will bring it out here. Now on this graph, looking from above, it looks like this simply moves here, and this is gonna be on the outside, but no. You need to remove the wheel, obviously, bring it all the way around, put it on the stud for the wheel on that side, and then, which would mean that this red mark will be here. So after that, we get to 10,000 miles, time for our second rotation. This is where you dismount the tire and rotate the tire on the wheel, which would bring this to this side, and then rotate it according to our pattern, which is simply move it straight up from the rear, which would bring that tire to here, our mark on the inside now. So again, we drive 5,000 more miles, get to 15,000 miles, we do our third rotation. This one is simply a rotation according to our pattern, which would mean that this is gonna come to this corner. So we remove that wheel, we bring it around, it's gonna bring that mark on the inside of the tire to the inside of this tire on this side. So next it's time for our fourth rotation. We dismount the tire, flip this around, which will bring this mark here, and then move it up according to our rotation, which is straight up from the rear, which would bring this to this side. So yeah, if you're following this along, you can tell that this mark that we made on this tire spent half of its time on the outside and half of its time on the inside edge of the wheel. And that's basically what you want for optimum tire wear. Also, don't get hung up on these patterns. Obviously, these patterns are good and they will work fine, but there's variations to these patterns where you just on the first rotation, let's say you just move the rear ones to the front on the same side, the front ones to the back, then on the second rotation you start crisscrossing them. As long as you stick to the same pattern, minus that one pattern that I showed you earlier where only this one went there, that one went here, the second rotation was the same thing, where these tires didn't see any other spots, minus that pattern, the patterns that involve crisscrossing them and moving the front ones to the back and the back ones to the front will work as long as you stick to the same pattern. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell notification, give this video a thumbs up, check out my other videos on this side of the screen in the suggestion box as well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.